Hello, everybody, and welcome to the launch of ShowSync, the fastest, most reliable way to manage your show content for your most important events. We are live from our offices today to show you what ShowSync can do, and thank you for joining us today. Jules from our team will be standing by in the chat to take any comments or questions you might have throughout this session, and we'll be answering some of those questions after we take you through some of the exciting features of ShowSync as a solution. Check out additional information on ShowSync at showsync.ca, and there you can book a one-on-one demo or learn more information. We'd be happy to talk to you about it. So look, managing content for live events shouldn't feel like herding cats. From scattered presentation files to last-minute versioning issues to long waits for show recordings. Most tools just aren't built for the pressure and pace of live production. We all know that content management for larger scale events, especially at scale, is hard. Current processes are difficult to manage, messy, and add a lot of time and hassle. That is why we built ShowSync, a purpose-built content management system designed specifically for live events, because content failure is not an option. Look, you know the pain. Presentation links go missing, last-minute speaker updates get lost in email, and when the show is over, it takes up to a week, if not two, to get your footage to the right teams. ShowSync fixes all of that by giving you a single, centralized system to manage your show content, from first upload to final recording. There are a few current solutions for managing content. They are generally cost-effective and in some cases are already integrated into your and your clients' businesses and workflows. However, when it comes to using these tools for events, as you know, you can run into a lot of access issues, restricting sharing and managing this content effectively. These solutions are typically used as online storage, so those who have access can edit, change, and modify anything in that big bucket, causing version and edit errors. Once you get to the event, distributing links and downloading content can be extremely time-consuming and difficult. Simply put, they were never built for events. Once you get the content into the right hands, now you're dealing with piles of USB keys, hard drive swaps, and additional copying of files from one machine to the next. When last-minute revisions come through, you have to start that access dance over again, which makes it difficult to manage changes. Other than an accessible cloud storage location, there's no real-time backup of what's been updated. After your event, we know how critical it is to leverage raw footage and content capture to your teams to push it to an internal or external stakeholder, like an editor or a social media team. Traditionally, it can take up to a week to get footage to your content teams and editors, and with a hard drive dump, that can take up to, as I said, a week. Even using online transfers like WeTransfer, SharePoint, and other systems run into additional access and risk management. So, here's how ShowSync works. First, upload your show content. We use a fully customizable portal to upload and submit content, with options to brand that portal for the event or the client, as well as additional data customization. Whether it's keynotes, award show graphics, or breakout slides, everything goes into one secure, customized portal. Fields in the submission portal can be customized to each event project using stage locations, room names, or dates. Because it's based on a submission portal workflow, you don't have to manage specific access to the submission portal. Simply share that custom portal link with your speakers, teams, and management to send content to the production and planning teams. The system notifies administrators and planners when package is submitted, so you can keep track of what content has been updated. Your content then automatically syncs across the entire production infrastructure, whether they're backstage, in a control room, or remote. Everyone's always working from the latest version. No missed updates, no wrong files on screen. Once we arrive on site, we use hardware servers and an air-gapped network infrastructure to securely and instantly sync all of the event content to each and every playback device in production. No more running around with a USB key trying to copy files, make sure everything's formatted correctly, etc. Because the sync happens from our hardware connected to the cloud. Within instance, your production team gets the latest revisions on every machine. As soon as your event wraps, your recordings and content are ready. No waiting. No back and forth with AV teams. Your comms and post-event teams can start editing and creating right away. All of your content is accessible and managed in a web-based interface. Your editors, content teams, and planning team can have access to show recordings, presentations, and final graphics from the event with an included 30-day storage window. That window can be extended if required. And then all of that content, whether inbound or outbound post-event footage, is secured with a 1, 2, 3 safe backup methodology, a single file held in at least 2 locations and in a triple backup. Whether we're running a 3-day sales kickoff, a high-stakes product launch, or a global conference, ShowSync helps you run tighter shows with less stress and faster follow-through. This is content management built for live events. I'd like to welcome now Alex McKay from our production team to talk about how ShowSync was built and where the ideation came from, as well as Whitney Bond from SHI International to talk about her and her team's recent experiences using ShowSync at their recent sales kickoff event in Austin. So, first of all, welcome Whitney and welcome Alex. Great. So, Alex, why don't we start with you? What were some of the biggest challenges you were seeing from our clients that sort of that began the inspiration behind ShowSync?
For sure. I mean, we're all familiar with the typical, you get on a show site, you need to swap files around, there's a latest version because the CEO had to change something or whatever the reason may be. And typically the runaround for that would be a bunch of USBs, sneakernet, or you've got people airdropping files all over the place. Or the absolute worst one that we see is, you've got to ask a technician to be given access to a SharePoint or a Google Drive, and you're sending Skaterboy 99 an invite link to your secure SharePoint. It's not exactly an ideal solution. Where ShowSync kicked off was we actually had a client that wanted all of their content to be networked across the event. They wanted all of the computers to have a central folder that they could access whatever the latest versions of the files were. They gave me a pitch for how they wanted to do that, and it was faced a lot of similar problems, but from a kind of different perspective. You didn't have the access problems of giving Skaterboy 99 access, but what you did have was their expectation that these files would only be available on site, and there was no real thought about how you were going to upload in advance or manage those files after the show. And so we kind of looked at it and went, we could do better than that. And that's where ShowSync was really born.
Excellent. And so ShowSync is built for an event content workflow. How is that different from using something like Dropbox or Google Drive or any of those sort of existing platforms?
For sure. The key thing with ShowSync is that it's not permanently online. So we're not looking at a system that, you have to have an internet connection for everything to work properly. It's designed for local file distribution, so that as updates are made, we're not hoping and praying that the internet doesn't go out in the middle of the show or etc. There's 3 pillars that we kind of looked at in developing ShowSync and comparing it to similar solutions, and that's redundancy, efficiency, and ease of use. Online solutions definitely have the redundancy. You've got a cloud backup of everything. That if your laptop dies, it's fine. Where it completely falls apart is in the efficiency, needing to download the files every time when you're on site or manage access in advance to upload, and ease of use, again, back to technicians on site needing to figure out a login or figure out which USB has the right version of the file, or be given access. It's so the key is that we're not trying to replace Google Drive, Dropbox, because we're really building a system that it has that redundancy element. It has what those systems are good at, but it also has the other 2 pillars, the efficiency and the ease of use for everyone on the show stuff.
Yeah, I particularly like how this system uses that sort of package workflow rather than a dumping ground of data. In those solutions, I feel like, yes, you could have a shared folder, but everybody has access. And who just worked on that? Was while you were looking over there, did somebody update a slide and we don't know about it? Because of the package workflow, you get a submission every time, which is, I think, gives you better data integrity integrity to what you need that presentation to be. So Whitney, welcome again. Thank you for joining us this morning. What were some of the biggest content management challenges you were facing before using ShowSync, and how did that change during that last SKO that we worked on?
It can best be described as chaos. As event planners, our list of things to do is lengthy, from hotel confirmations to travel to budget to content. And we're not really thinking about, how am I going to get this over to our production team? And I personally work at a very large global IT services solution provider who doesn't have access to Dropbox. We don't use Google Drive. I couldn't use a thumb drive even if I wanted to. And y'all just jumped in with a solution before I even knew it was a problem. It was just so simple to upload, take care of. I didn't have to worry about teams or admins or emailing anybody. You just drag and drop and it's there. It's done. It's simple. Y'all had it.
Yeah. And so, your event had so many moving parts with keynotes from partner presentations, a sales pitch battle from your sales teams, award presentations, and of course, then internal presentations. So how did ShowSync keep your team and the content aligned throughout that event?
With so many solutions out there, it simplified everything. I could go to a stakeholder, I could go to a customer, I could go to a partner, I could go to an employee, send them a link, say, upload your photo here, and it's there. I didn't have to worry about it. It was like, set it and forget it, and it was so easy. And even the planning team and production team are on different timelines. I'm going to bed at 3:00. Y'all are loading in at 5:00 in the morning. So you can see what we did overnight or the changes that were made. So the work never stopped. Flow never ended. It was just seamless.
Excellent. And so, Alex, back to you for a second. Can you tell me a little bit about that triple backup of the solution and what that allows? So let's say, worst case scenario, someone accidentally spills a cup of coffee on a machine that's running show content. What happens then?
Yeah, for sure. So we take a pretty standard view of data backup. If you're used to the IT space at all, it's the 3-2-1 backup methodology, which means we've got 3 copies of each file. One of them sits on the operations machine, your playback machine. One of them sits on our on-site server, and one of them sits up in our cloud storage, which is synchronized with that on-site server. The 2 is 2 different kinds of media. So the 2, we have on-site physical hard drives and then a cloud storage. And then the last one is an off-site backup, so that even if, there's a power surge, a lightning strike, and all of the equipment on site is fried, that data is still protected. In terms of, so that's the kind of 3-2-1 methodology. In terms of if you spill a bit of coffee on a computer, it's as easy as finding a new machine, plugging it into the network, the folder with ShowSync and all the show content pops up. You drag over what you need, the PowerPoints that machine is going to run, and you're good to go. Very quick, very easy.
I love the swap outable. I don't even know if that's the right English word. Taking into account your accent, I want to make sure that I'm being respectful there. But the idea that, look, event professionals plan for the absolute worst. And the moment that you say the absolute worst could not possibly happen is the day that the coffee is going to spill on the machine. And then, oh my God, it's sparking and I got to get rid of this. The idea that you can just crack open another laptop, plug it into the network, let it spin up and go, yep, there it is. So now that risk management is a really huge part of that. And so let's talk about some of the technicians that we've worked with, because I think that's an interesting perspective. What kind of feedback have you received from technical or production teams, and how has that shaped the development of this solution?
Yeah, the technical teams love it. They love that all they have to worry about is making sure that the folder is showing up on the computer and all the content's there. Especially because we take the package approach to show content. There is always a clear trace of what the latest uploaded file was. You're not kind of digging around in the folder structure trying to go, was this the latest version? Is v3_2795? It's as easy as just, what is the latest upload in the folder? And if the folder's confusing, then we have a dashboard, the technician runs over there. That was actually a development, we were doing a lot of back and forth with the technicians, which was, what's the latest upload? I was checking the admin dashboard. And so we're developing a tool so that technicians themselves can see what the latest version of the file is. And that was a bit of feedback there. I think my favorite feedback, actual verbiage I've received from a technician was we were on a show there was a lot of last minute changes. It was, tech shows, so really dynamic space, slides getting updated. And we had one of our technicians turn around and say, you know what, if I had to be running USBs around and Dropboxing files and figuring out what everything was, I would have walked off. Off.
Yeah. Tim would have quit on that show. And, all joking, like we're joking about it now, but it was a wonderful situation. And for everybody listening, that was Whitney's show. Whitney had a lot of last minute revisions, and we don't want to call you out, but, I do want to emphasize one of the great things. And I think it was one of your team came in for, Whitney, the, last award show. And I think it was probably about 10 or 15 minutes before doors. And, in a stressed out mode because everything had changed. The running order had changed. The slides needed to be almost completely updated. And can you tell everybody what happened then? I'm trying to avoid her name because she's not here. But that person sort of walked in the ballroom, looked at us and said, I have a new presentation. What do I do?
They uploaded it. Y'all had it. It was taken care of. There was no change, no hiccup, no change in the flow whatsoever. 5 people knew what happened. The company did not know. And it was amazing.
Yeah, and I'll point out that because of this system, she was sitting in the dining room, like in the ballroom where we were. The stage was just to our left-hand side. And she sat at a table, pressed upload, and it was within a minute. We had the new presentation. It was on every single machine, and it was up on screen. There was no running around. And I think, especially because of the nature of the things that we do in this art form, that's vitally important to be able to have that assurance. So let's talk about post-event stuff. So how quickly were you able to access the recordings and assets, and how did that impact your ability to follow up with your internal teams to repurpose that content?
We definitely had the content that night. Award show was over. We had it. Our video team had it, which was in a whole nother state and a whole nother time zone. They had access to it. And even from other footage during the week, y'all had it immediately on the server and our team could access it. Now, as an event planner, y'all have your triple backup. That's not enough for me. I need a quadruple backup. So y'all were so wonderful. And the next morning I did have, the hard drive situation, but the fact that our video team had it that night immediately after programming ended was a huge stress reliever, not only for me, but the other teams and the executives and the C-suite who knew they would need that content immediately.
Yeah, and so just a quick follow-up on that. How quickly because you were cutting down the sessions so that you could communicate that to internal teams that weren't able to attend. How quickly was that editing team out of New Jersey, I believe, were they able to turn around that footage and those sessions to your internal teams?
Quicker than ever before. It just got there. They had access to it. And it didn't have to upload, or there was no time. There was no lag. It was so continuous, and the flow it was such an added benefit.
Excellent. And so for the event leaders and planners who are on the show today, who are planning high-stake events, what would you say was the biggest benefit of using ShowSync?
I say there are 2 wonderful assets of using ShowSync. First of all, your team. This is a highly technical concept and not something that was at my knowledge level. Y'all hopped on, talked to InfoSec, wrote a beautiful email, explained it to our IT team, got it all squared away. We knew it was safe. We knew it was reliable. And so that was the first thing that y'all made it so seamless just to onboard us into the system, and just the ease of use. Ease of use. I could send the link to a partner, a coworker, and not have to worry about it. The file got there. I even got a receipt that the file had been uploaded. And with the structure of your ShowSync, I could say this needed to be on the main stage. This needed to be on Wednesday's night show. This needed to be on a different screen. So it was organized and sorted before I even got there. And it's just so seamless, and I couldn't recommend it anymore.
Well, thanks, Whitney. That's lovely of you to say. And so thanks, Whitney and Alex. That was really great to hear your perspectives on ShowSync as a solution. So thank you for joining us. We're just going to go to the chat to see if we can have any questions from the audience. And Jules, just wondering if you have heard anything. Great. That's a fantastic question. And I'm actually going to bring Alex back. So the question was, if the venue doesn't necessarily have the strongest Wi-Fi or internet connection, does that limit the ability of ShowSync?
It might adjust how we approach it. When we're deploying ShowSync, it's always a conversation about what facilities are available, and then we'll adapt the system to those facilities. So if we know that we're going to have a slow internet connection, we'll do our best to have all of the show content downloaded onto that local server in advance before it gets to show site. And all those local facilities, the fact that all the computers can see those files, that still stands and holds true. Where if you have a limited internet connection, you might have some trouble with the portal syncing from the cloud, at which point our approach might be to designate a local machine as, the client machine where they can manage those uploads and do all that. Still on a single source, we're still not running USBs around. That one machine then syncs with the network, and all machines can see those updates on the network. So yeah, it's definitely always a concern if internet is a limitation. But there are, it's stuff we've experienced, it's stuff we're ready to work around. And it's all part of kind of the pre-discussions of a show, how we want to approach different scenarios. Absolutely.
Jules, any other questions from the audience? Yeah, so the question was about how the system tracks version history, which I think is a really great question. So, generally speaking, we use a system that was borrowed from the film and television industry. So we look at presentations and content like traffic management and by a submission package. So when a presentation or a piece of content is uploaded to the portal, there's all sorts of technical bits, which is why I'm keeping Alex on here to keep me honest, about JSON data and data tags and time of day tags that are in the package naming convention, so that for example, keynote presentation is uploaded the day before. By the CEO that is presenting as the keynote. So that comes in as main stage CEO day one presentation, and it's got a date stamp on it. So and here's a situation which we know happens quite a lot, that the CEO jumps on a plane, is flying from California to New York, and during the flight, they read some cool inspirational book about how to manage teams, and they decide, I am going to change my presentation completely. And it has happened on many events. I am sure everybody listening can probably relate to this. So what typically happens is that the CEO then walks into the ballroom, maybe has communicated, hey, I have a new presentation to an EA or to the event planning team, and then will then hand a USB key, and then we're doing a mad scramble. Because if the CEO had access to Wi-Fi on the plane, which 99% of the time they probably would, they can just upload to the portal with a note saying, hey, here's my new version. I rewrote the entire presentation. When that package comes in, it will say main stage CEO presentation day one with an updated time and date stamp on it. So all you really have to do is look in the folder and say, hey, we have a new presentation. It's newer than the one before, so therefore that's the one we're probably going to go with. Now, I will say that there is a human factor, and maybe Alex, you can talk about that human factor in the sync workflow.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's as you say, it's most of the version tracking is done by date and timestamps. The way that we make sure that all of that kind of data is related to each other is we try to provide the technician, the operator, as much information as possible. So if they get two presentations called CEO's presentation, we're providing to them who sent that upload, and we're also providing them the notes from that upload. So, the human factor is we're relying on accurate notes, but if the accurate notes aren't available, the technician can then fall back and go, okay, so I've had two versions of this uploaded, one by the CEO, one by the CEO's assistant. Well, I'm with the CEO right now, and he's saying, no, ignore the assistant. I know that this is my version. And now we're not trying to figure out, which specifically named file is the CEO's and which specifically named file was the assistant. We know from the metadata that's available to the technician that he can just go, okay, it's the CEO's. Let me go to the one the CEO uploaded because I know who uploaded it. And then we load it up and we're good to go. So the human factor is there may be a brief back and forth where we go, hey, just want to confirm this is definitely the latest version. But that's also important because if we're trying to do automated version management with, different file names and potentially rewrites of the whole file, we don't want anything to... We don't want to create too much automation there because that's a point of, that's a point of failure. That's a potential that things can be out of sync.
The question was from David, what's the minimum file size? And I don't think that there's a restriction, really. We haven't ever hit our maximum file size yet, have we?
So I'll weigh in. I think what the question's asking is network speed, Mbps as
I see. Sorry, I thought they said
speed.
megabyte. All right, sorry about that.
No worries. It depends on the production. And the reason why it depends on the production is we have done scenarios where we had 20 Mbps, 20 megabytes a second. And because we were using fairly light video files and, the presentations weren't chock full of 8K footage and all that stuff, the 20 Mbps was perfectly good, perfectly fine, worked for us. We've had other scenarios where we had a show that generated 5 terabytes of video footage in a single day. At which point we had to ask the venue to give us full gigabit networking speeds, and they were more than happy to oblige. So it depends on the show, and largely it depends on what video recording format you're using, and if there's going to be any kind of large-scale video content that, the larger the file, the faster the internet connection you're going to want, basically.
Yeah. We have another question. Go ahead. Yes, absolutely. So the question was, can you show us a photo of the interface? And Jules, who's controlling our PowerPoint right now, if we can go back a couple slides to the file browser image. We're going back. There we go. Oh, you just passed it. No problem. So this is a view of the back end of ShowSync, where this is access controlled to the planning teams and the production teams. And so as you can see here, this was post-event from the SHI SKO. With Whitney, and we have camera footage and graphics and program graphics that if we were doing a live view right now, we could click into program and you would see all of the submissions that were made over the entire production process. Again, date stamp. It's meant to be as file browser familiar as possible for teams to navigate. Okay, so that was a question from Matt, who was asking, so can we link this to other show or event apps and platforms? Right now, we are working on some future development. Session board is a suggestion so that submissions can automatically push into those products, as well as things like ShowFlow or other queuing software. And to Matt, your point about the session recordings, can they automatically be pushed into a post-event app? Not at present. Right now, yes, your editing team would have to access the recordings, download them, cut them, and then re-upload them into a new platform. But it is on our future roadmap. Right. So that's a new question from David about how much customization is available for the portal customization. Right now, I'm the sales guy, so I'm going to say complete customization. But then I'm going to call on Alex if there's some restrictions.
Yeah, for sure. The system right now is built mainly for logo swap outs and background swap outs. And that's the bulk of the customization. You know, we can also customize obviously the form fields so that we can determine, you know, what specific rooms or what specific days an event or a file is needed, so that the system can kind of auto sort it into the folder for that. But the fun thing about this is it's a system that we built in-house, and it's a system that we're building with feedback from our clients. And so if there is a feature for your show that would be really handy, or you're looking at this going, man, that sounds great, but I wish it did this thing, we're more than happy to hear about that, because it's, you know, we're developing this in-house. It's something that we can iterate on and develop further.
Yeah, and we designed the system, and the reason that we did this in-house construction, to reemphasize that point, was that we knew that there will always be people who like to organize things by the room, or the date, or the speaker, or the breakout room, whatever, or the stage, however you want to do it. We can customize each one of those portals for that particular event. And as this is iteration 1, I wouldn't call it the beta, but it's definitely our first sort of fully formed version of this. The sky's the limit on customization. So great question, David, about how camera footage is synced and uploaded to the system. To give the brief overview, the system is constantly syncing from the record decks on site. And so to Alex's point earlier, barring any specific data requirements from the internet connection at the venue, it really depends. The speed depends really on the size and format of the files that we are syncing to the cloud. So a 1080 LT 422 at 30 frames per second obviously goes up faster and syncs faster across the network and then to the cloud. In the case of SHI's SKO, which was all 1080 footage at 30 frames per second, all of the footage was up in the cloud within 30 to 40 minutes after the end of the last presentation, after we stopped the record. For another project that we recently did where it was 4K footage, there was 5 main stage cameras plus the program feed, and then a breakout room with 2 other cameras and a program feed, all at 4K at ProRes 444. That took about 8 to 12 hours to be available to the teams who were stationed in Germany to be able to access the footage, which worked out really well because they were asleep while and by the time they woke up in the morning in Germany, all of the footage was available for them to start cutting, repurposing, and sending out to their teams.
Yeah, I'll also weigh in on the technical side. Mm-hmm. The local file server is, in essence, a NAS like one you may have at home, except that it's you run some more advanced software so that we can do some extra tricks with it. Mm-hmm. Our typical workflow, so your video recorders do have to be capable of a network record if we're going to be recording direct to the server. And again, that's the kind of thing that we'll work with your team and go, hey, here are the requirements for your video recorders so that we know that we're going to be able to synchronize this effectively.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, so that is a great question for those who may not hear Jules's voice in their head right now. So somebody just asked about, so a graphics op goes and changes something on a local machine, and does that sync that change across production? Alex, do you want to sort of take on how we synchronize that?
Yeah, 100%. So that file synchronization that we're talking about, where the portal uploads to like a cloud storage and then we synchronize it to site, that's a bidirectional sync. So if we have a technician that is editing files on site, we'll make sure that they're trained to re-add that file to the network drive, to the network folder, so that can then be synchronized up to our cloud, and we can send a link to the presenter or to whoever needs it with that updated version of the file should they need it.
Yeah, and again, that'll all be in the archive and in the back-end online file browser. So when you go into that presentations file, you can see, hey, this was the latest synced version, which is great. There was also a question about pricing. We would be happy to talk to you about pricing, and we'll show you how to get that at the end. Jules, are there any more questions? Yeah, that's a great question. So somebody just asked whether or not this video recording would be available post this launch. Absolutely. If you registered for this event, we'll be sending you a copy of this so that you can share it with your teams. Okay, so thank you, everybody. Those were really insightful questions, and I really enjoyed answering those. So look, what we've built here with ShowSync is really about giving event teams the control, clarity, and speed they always needed without relying on a patchwork of tools that weren't designed for this kind of work. Whether you're juggling keynote revisions, wrangling dozens of presentations, or trying to get your hands on post-show footage before it becomes irrelevant, ShowSync is built to keep your content in sync, your team in control, and your show on point. If you're interested in seeing how it could work for your next event, come chat with us after this or visit showsync.ca to learn more, book a one-on-one demo, and we'll certainly be happy to talk to you about pricing. Thank you again for your time and for everything you do to make great shows happen. We are Burn Production Services, specialists in multi-day conferences and meetings and large-scale events. And from all of us at Burn, please have a wonderful day, and thank you for joining us on this event. Have a great one.